go, Brazzers. It's time to tackle the Young Turks yet again. Let's see what sort of nonsense they're up to this time.
Ben Carson's nomination hearing to become the next head of the Department of Housing and Urban Development is taking place today, and he had some interesting interactions on a couple different topics which we're going to cover here. In this first one, you're going to see the very real concerns that he, because he is so anti-LGBT, might not be willing to fight for their equal access to housing and other related issues that he'd be in charge of if he headed up HUD. You're going to see his response to a question concerning that here.
Your statement mentions your desire to improve the lives of all families and communities, quote, no matter their race, creed, color, or orientation, yet you have in the past raised questions about whether LGBTQ people should enjoy the same rights as everyone else. Do you believe that HUD has a duty to take actions that promote equal access to housing opportunities for LGBTQ people?
If confirmed in this position, of course, I would enforce all the laws of the land. And I believe that all Americans, regardless of any of the things that you mentioned, should be protected by the law. What I have mentioned in the past is the fact that no one gets extra rights. Extra rights means you get to redefine everything for everybody else. That to me doesn't seem to be very
That's what we're
democratic.
talking about, but I'm glad to hear you say that moving forward you will respect that.
All right, cool. So he's going to respect everyone's rights. Awesome. No one gets extra rights because that would be the government taking a side and treating people unfairly, which is not the government's job.
So maybe I'm being unfair, I guess, but I think we all know exactly what he said there, is that it doesn't matter if the Supreme Court said gay individuals can get married. No, that's extra rights. You're redefining it for everybody else.
No, John, you're reading way too much into that. He said, no one gets extra rights. No one... You know what? I'm just going to replay it. I'm going to replay it. Here it goes.
I would enforce all the laws of the land. And I believe that all Americans, regardless of any of the things that you mentioned, should be protected by the law. What I have mentioned in the past is the fact that no one gets extra rights.
Extra rights. No one gets them. Because the government is not in the job of treating people special. What the fuck is wrong with you, John? Why must your ideology... Oh, right, you're a Young Turk.
So will he defend their rights? The ones he thinks they have?
No, it's not extra rights to have the same rights.
Yeah.
It's a definitional issue.
What rights does anyone have that the LGBT community does not have? Riddle me that, fat man.
Hey, do we all have the same rights to get married? Well, yeah, no.
What are you talking about? Of course we all have the same rights to get married. The fucking Supreme Court did that shit. You're a moron.
It's just so topsy-turvy because it's Orwellian. Straight people are the ones with extra rights. We get to marry whoever we want, right? And he doesn't want that. And then the consequences that flow from that would affect his job at housing and urban development. Okay.
Did the marriage thing get repealed and I didn't see it? What? Everybody can get married to a consenting adult of their choice that consents to marry them. Stop this.
Okay, for this confirmation hearing, what I'm most amused, frustrated by is like the media plays up this thing that the Republicans are pushing forward. And by the way, this is not just a Republican thing. And Republicans and Democrats do this depending on whoever's in charge. And the media goes along and it drives me crazy. The touchstone, apparently, of these confirmation hearings will be Ben Carson's personal story.
So you don't like Ben Carson because of his personal story? You don't think it's relevant or important to how he's going to run housing and urban development? I don't get it.
He grew up in poverty and then his mom told him to get an education and stuff. I'm not belittling that story. That's a wonderful story. I have a very similar story. And, you know, I interviewed my dad, not just liberals, conservatives seem to love it. Go check it out on TYT interviews.
No, really. Thanks. No.
Like, how did a guy like that produce a liberal son of a bitch like you? Okay. So, yeah, bootstraps, work your way up, get an education. That doesn't mean I should run NASA.
That's true, Chunk. No one's ever going to mistake you for a rocket scientist. But if you had some sort of vision or if you had some sort of leadership ability, I don't see a problem with someone who just has leadership in his resume running a department of the government.
Those are two separate things. You know, it doesn't mean my dad should run NASA, right? Yeah,
Give him a try.
My dad lived the American dream. In some ways, Ben Carson lived the American dream. But it doesn't mean he's qualified for this job.
Is that what you Young Turks do? Just talk over each other like that? So rude. Why shouldn't Ben Carson make a fine head of the Department of Housing and Urban Development? Is it because you think that it's racist for him to run it? Do you think it's some sort of white nationalist conspiracy? Oh, I've got someone to introduce you to.
It's a little bit offensive, honestly, that Marco Rubio introduced him with this "he grew up in the inner city" thing, which has been the only defense that anyone on the right has provided for him since he was nominated to be in the position. The idea that because he grew up in the inner city, well, HUD, that's that inner city thing the government does. Clearly, it's a perfect match. That's an insane thing to say.
It's a little offensive. It's a little offensive. I'm John Adirola. I take offense at things because that's what I do. I'm a professional offense taker. Oh, it's a little offensive. It's only a little offensive, so I can't get all worked up. Oh, poor you. You can't get all worked up and get all have an offense orgasm because you think that he's not qualified for this job. But guess what? Governmental positions like this are about making sure that the thing runs well. I think a neurosurgeon is more than capable of leadership, of being a leader to people. Get a grip on yourself and stop taking offense at everything, John Adirola.
He didn't even live in subsidized housing, government housing, when he was growing up. So it's not even accurate. But look, it was interesting, I think, that considering that this is a guy who said at one point that he doesn't want to head up a department because he's not qualified and he might cripple Trump's presidency, was not asked about that quote, as far as I can see, as far as I could find during the hearing. This is also a guy.
So Carson kind of self-deprecates, and you want to call that a damning quote that he should be called to the carpet for? He was being self-deprecating. He was being humble. Do you know what humility is? Try it sometime.
Who said at one point, these government-engineered attempts to legislate racial equality create consequences that often make matters worse.
Okay, so he's right.
And there are reasonable ways to use housing policy to enhance the opportunities available to lower-income citizens, but based on the history of failed socialist experiments in this country, entrusting the government to get it right can prove downright dangerous. This is a guy who's going to be in charge of a department that puts out billions and billions and billions of dollars of funding every single year, has almost 10,000 employees, I believe, has to deal with issues of racial equality and trying to get people government housing who doesn't believe that government housing or racial equality are the business of the government.
No, you fool. He's saying that government should be blind in terms of race. Government shouldn't look at people's race and determine what they can offer the people. Government should treat all the people equally, you stupid fucking dolt.
And that's why they put him in there to destroy that department.
Yeah.
That's why they put him there, to destroy that department. Right.
So he says he's going to go on a listening tour. I don't know what that has to do with anything. And the Republicans, it's they view it as his second best qualification. They're like, well, now remember he was born poor, and come on, the guy's black, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to run, housing, public housing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the only argument you've ever learned is straw man. What the fuck, Jank? Chunky yogurt? Learn a new argument.
right? And he's going to go on a listening tour, and he might actually give a damn what you guys think. Right?
His third best quality is he has never in his life suffered from insomnia.
Hey, my name is Johnny DeRilla. I'm a retard.
And so if I said, hey, I'm going to run the Food and Drug Administration, I don't know anything about that. And, well, your food might get poisoned and so might your drugs.
Why would the food get poisoned or the drugs get poisoned just because you don't know shit about shit? Are you the only person in that department, Junk? No. There are other people in the governmental department that know what they're doing. If you have leadership is about knowing where to put the right people. Chunky chicken.
Because I have no qualifications whatsoever, but I have a really good life story, and I'll go listen to you about your food and drugs. You'd probably go, I don't know about that. Look.
Oh, good. Aside from straw men, we're getting false equivalencies. Awesome. Listening to the people who are subject to the Housing and Urban Development Department is a good idea. You should know what the people need and what the people want. You're being obtuse and willfully ignorant.
They could have been a lot more honest, because it isn't Food and Drug Administration, it isn't NASA, right? They could have just said, hey, look, the guy who won the presidency has no government experience either. So he has no government experience, and yeah, he's generally opposed to government action, but we won and you guys didn't. And so he's going to go in there, and he might keep some of it, and he might lose some of it. And that's life in the big city, because we won. That would at least be an honest approach, and there I actually would be hard-pressed to stop them.
All of those things you just said are implied. That is life in the big city, chink. And whether you want Ben Carson to be head of housing and urban development is irrelevant.
Because they did win.
Well, they will be hard-pressed to stop him, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he'll pass. Already corporate Democrats are saying, well, I came in, Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota. Well, I came in a little skeptical, but his personal story has really affected me. All right?
I've heard that personal story before.
And
we get it. You're unimpressed with Ben Carson's personal story. Racists? Okay, I'm kidding. I don't think you're actively racist. I just think that you suffer from the soft bigotry of low expectations. And this next clip is really going to drive that point home.
And finally, if you're wondering which direction he is actually going to go, I think the most devastating quote was, he had said that earlier that he did not want people vegetating year after year in public housing. So he does not have...
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Someone please tell me what that means. What could it possibly mean? What is that government housing should not be your main plan, Johnny?
That means I don't want you to live in public housing. That's why they put me in charge of public housing, so I can kick you out.
Yeah.
One interpretation, or it could be that the government's role is not to take care of you from the cradle to the grave. That the role of housing and urban development is to give you a place to live while you're restructuring your life or getting back on your feet. It's not meant to be permanent. All right, those are my last thoughts on this. Probably not going to do another Young Turks one unless they say something really egregious. I saw that they did this video yesterday, and I just had to comment on it. All right, so that's it. Please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Have a good day, guys.